Save the date. July 9th, we will be raising some money for abortion funds. Details are forthcoming. Keep an eye on our social media feeds. Thank you. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, the monthly show where we answer your cues, discuss your topics, and read your responses.
Yeah. And at the end, announce... Well, no, that's not going to happen this time because we've already announced August's games. So
you fell right into my trap.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah. I left that out just so you could trip and fall like a big clown.
Yep.
Let us all have a day at the circus.
Do. And I can't emphasize enough, do.
Do.
Yeah.
Time for do. Not time for do. Real quick, before we go into it. So we're not announcing new things because we pre-announced due to the switcher swapperoo that we did to give ourselves some more Final Fantasy 12 time. We talked about that already, but just FYI, in case anybody's wondering. The other thing is we're going to start a new thing on Watch Out for Fireballs that we're going to announce here. And we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about it real quick. Shamelessly ripping off a creator that we like. We don't have a fun name for this, but people who listen to this who share our politics may watch a YouTuber by the name of Thought Slime. They are good. And you should. They do a thing called the Eyeball Zone where they spotlight smaller leftist projects through their thing. Watch Out for Fireball is not a leftist project, but we are two straight cis white dudes. We got in at the right time. Like I think that we're good at what we do, but it would be ridiculous to claim that the success that we found has nothing to do with our privilege or, just us winning that dice roll.
Agreed.
Just really lucking out, got an easy mode.
Yep.
For life. So we're going to start at the end of Watch Out for Fireballs episodes during our admin section. We're going to try to draw some attention to projects by people who are not cis white straight dudes. So if you have such a project, and you're listening to this and you want a quick shout out and would like, some attention directed your way, send me an email.
Yeah.
Gary at Duckfeed.tv. And I will screen you for fascism and make sure you're not trying to get one over on us because we're and then we'll give you a shout out. It doesn't necessarily mean, my media consumption diet right now is very diseased. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to check out everything personally, other than just kind of checking it out. But we do want to get spread some attention to people who are not on easy mode in life. We've got
love and we want to spread it around. So
yeah. It's a kind of thing that douchebags are going to say this is guilt. It's not guilt to want to do something nice and recognize injustice in the world. There's a motivation for wanting to, even scales for things that isn't guilt. It's more that when things are crappy, I notice it. Nothing to do with guilt, but I do want to fight it. I'm a warrior for justice.
People will say this is virtue signaling, to which I would say that is not an operative term.
Yes.
Yeah. So in response to that, I would say, no, we genuinely want to give a little bit of our time in order to spread the word, for folks who are in a different position. And that is something that we value. We are, we have values. So
we have a platform and we have values. And it's up to us how to use it. If it bothers you, you can sit on attack.
Yeah. Oh, or, you know, less aggressively, if it bothers you, there's a skip button. You can jump forward.
Sit on your hands. Yeah. It's at the end. It's during the admin stuff, kind of regardless. We can cede a portion of that.
Yes.
To people, I think. So again, just email me, Gary at Duckfeed.tv, and we will start including those next week. I don't know it doesn't have a fun name yet. No theme song or anything like that. We'll figure something out, but we will, that's something we want to do because we want to, we're very lucky. We're exceedingly lucky. Like this is a dream job. We found a lot of success. I do think that we're good at what we do, but I'm not so naive to think that, you know, every single bit of good fortune we've had is due to our massive talent. I think that it is only right and good to give something back.
Meritocracy is a joke. Yes. So, and also we only grow by word of mouth. We want to pass that along. We want to balance the scales.
Yeah, that's exactly it too. Where, you know, a lot of people ask us, they're like, "Oh, I'm starting a project. How do I get people to listen to it?" And I don't have the answer of like travel back in time 10 years and do the same thing every week for a decade, which is the actual answer. That's not the useful answer. But if there's a way that we can help, like we want to be of service.
Yes,
it is a core value. Get into it. I'll start us off here with a Hunter Johns question here. What do y'all think about nerd universes, i.e. Warhammer, Star Trek, Star Wars, Forgotten Realms, as a transmedia property in video game space? Which ones do you like the most? Which ones are generally shit? And which ones would you like to get more into?
I'm for it insofar as I'm not against it. You know, they're like of the ones that you list as examples, Hunter, Forgotten Realms, I think, is the one that I have the most genuine affection for. You know, just having read a lot of the books and played a fair number of the games, I think Forgotten Realm stuff is real cool. And as far as the others go, you know, I've not really played a Star Trek game outside of the SNES one we did. Star Wars games can be a mixed bag, but there are real high cards there. The ones that I want to get into there, like of the ones listed, Warhammer always seems real neat, but it's daunting.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of these other universes. I'm just not thinking of them. I still haven't played a Star Trek game that captures what I really like about Star Trek. The old ones are the closest. The one we did for Abject Suffering and stuff, that's the closest because it's so stilted and weird. And there are Star Wars games I like, but the Star Warsness is incidental. For me. So it's kind of tricky. Forgotten Realms games I really, really like, but I just think of them as D&D games.
That's the thing.
Like, it's such the default setting, you know, for D&D. Like, there's not so much Forgotten Realmsness.
Yeah, I mean, outside of pulling in specific Forgotten Realms characters or, you know, cities and stuff like that. That said,
Volo shows up.
Yeah, Volo shows up. You get a Drizzt cameo, of course, obviously. That said, like, default D&D-ness, you know, the Eberron was a default D&D campaign for a few years too, and if somebody tried to put an Eberron game in front of me, I would say no, thank you.
Send it back. In general, I guess that would be the thing I want more of is more of those specific. I would like D&D games that take, you know, different cues rather than Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms.
Yeah,
like we have Torment, we have a couple Ravenloft games. I would like to see a great game in the Ravenloft setting.
Ravenloft immersive sim, please.
Oh, that'd be incredible. You know, or even just a Baldur's Gate alike.
Yeah.
You know, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Let's see here. JC and Adrian write, the Mellotron is my favorite instrument, but it doesn't show up on many, if any, video game soundtracks. Do either of you have a musical instrument you'd like to see used more often in video games?
I would really like non-douchey electric guitar.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound like you know, dated rock and roll, like, you know, hard rock, which I think happens a lot with electric guitar. Like maybe clean electric guitar would be my answer for this.
A standout soundtrack for clean electric guitar is Disco Elysium.
Yes,
additionally, like the guitar focused tracks on the Silent Hill soundtracks are always real good because they sound more poppy than rocky.
Some of those I think I don't like. Some of those, the main Silent Hill 2 one Like I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but I think that's douchey. I think that has that rocky douche element.
Yeah, that's a low card in that deck, especially the section that sounds like a James Bond theme song section.
Yeah. The name is Sunderland. James Sunderland. That's I want less of that and more clean. More bands doing scores like Disco Elysium in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool. Like some of those are songs that would have vocals ordinarily, and they're just like really nice instrumental arrangements.
Yeah.
Of pop songs. I think that's great.
Yeah. An instrument that I like that is weirdly a mainstay of horror movies, but hasn't popped up in a lot of horror video game soundtracks. It's called the waterphone. Are you aware of a waterphone, Gary?
I'm familiar with a glass harmonica, which is a water instrument.
No.
Tell me more about the waterphone.
The waterphone is an instrument. I'll send you a photo of it. It's an instrument that looks kind of like a bird cage with a bottom, but no top.
I know what this thing is. Yeah, and you play it with a bow.
You play it with a bow, or you can hit it with a mallet. Different things. A band that I love, Shearwater, uses it quite a bit for atmospheric kind of effects. But like in horror movie soundtracks where you hear things that sound like the stereotypical like a spider's kind of walking around kind of thing.
Yeah,
if that
spiders about.
Yeah,
that wave.
If that is not a pizzicato violin that they are doing, like just a picked violin, oftentimes it'll be a plucked waterphone. Look up videos of this. It's a really neat instrument.
Yeah. And glass harmonica would be cool as well.
Oh yeah. Sounds all ghostly.
Yeah. Super ghostly. And they're super fragile, and there's, hard to maintain. And watching videos of how to play one of those is really crazy because it has the same layout as a keyboard, but it ain't a keyboard.
Invented by noted syphilitic Benjamin Franklin.
Yes. Yeah. But I don't. My name's Gordon. Good answer on those things. Cassandra says, "Hey guys, so I recently started playing Resident Evil HD Remake after playing 2 Make and 3 Make, and something stuck with me. While I think the remake is a fantastic game, no notes, big chef kiss, motions made to the team, etc., I can't help but think, what would a big modern remake in the modern Capcom engine look like? Moreover, would it be wanted by the general public, considering how good Capcom made the HD remake? Personally, I'd be really interested in seeing what a modern remake of Resident Evil 1 would look like, and I also know that it would be a foundational sin to some of the fan base. Take care."
So I think that we're at the point where we could get a real-time rendering of those spaces that would look really good, taking it out of the third-person tank control fixed camera angle, I think would require some necessary adjustments to the spaces that would eliminate some of the things that like make the Spencer Mansion to me really cool. The crampedness and kind of like coiledness of that space, even more so than the Raccoon City Police Department, which is designed like a municipal building. The Spencer Mansion itself being so important there, I wouldn't want the compromises that would come from making it the 2 Make and 3 Make over the shoulder style.
This is something that I think if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have felt that way. This is not me trying to make a flex. I've gotten to the point now and seeing screenshots of the Resident Evil 4 remake was a real tipping point of this for me.
Yeah.
And then the discourse around the Demon Souls remake. I kind of no longer really buy subtraction by addition with this kind of thing. Like I am much more in these are holy spaces and I want to see them from every angle possible.
Yep.
Camp. So my feeling is go for it.
Yeah.
Like they would have to do a lot of adjustments, but I want to see this space that is really, really important to me. I want to explore it in a new way and see it from new angles.
Yeah.
It doesn't take anything away for me to have this version of it that would be worse in some ways and cooler in other ways. Like I'll just take it all. I'm now a glutton for these kind of spaces.
You know what the actual solution is? Do an RE7 style first person.
Sure.
Yeah. But also the actual answer is I would not be offended if they did a two make three make style thing in RE1. Yeah. I'm more speaking more to what I feel is like most likely. And I am more than happy to be proven wrong on it.
Yeah.
So.
There would be things we would lose, but we would make gains as well.
Yeah.
And it's just with emulation and everything, like I don't even have to drag out my GameCube to play, or not, there's just ports of it. I don't have to do anything to play the original version of it. And as somebody who likes old tank controls and fixed camera stuff, that will always be there for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weird thing where I've somewhere along the line, a switch flipped. And like, I would not give up the stuff that's after the peak of things anymore.
Wait a minute. You don't hold fast to, quickly made decisions that you had 10 years ago.
I guess in some ways getting older sometimes is a process of chilling out.
Yeah.
I'm more angry about, I try to reserve my anger, I guess. and there's no judgment for people who get mad at other stuff about that. But I just like, for me, like we talked about it when the Demon Souls remake came out. I really like that remake. I like the original version as well. But like, to me, there is value in being able to see what the Dirty Colossus is.
Yes.
You lose something in that visual fidelity, that lack of visual fidelity that adds this atmosphere. But also now I can see what kind of monster that is. And that's cool too. And
like
nothing was taken from me. It was just added.
Yeah.
Gimme. Content, Biggie. That's me now for things that I liked as a 20-year-old.
Yes. Bo says, I play along with every game that the two of you cover on WoF, and while I typically have a strong opinion that I want to share about my experience with each title, I find it difficult to express how I feel about my particular game, about any particular game, or any piece of art, in short, succinct responses. Most of the game's coverage, criticism, and reaction that I encounter seems to start and end with totalizing epithets on either the game's quality as a product or with judgments on a hyper-literal narrative read, something which I try to avoid in my own evaluations, and which I think you two do excellently in your coverage. My question is, what are some of the sites/writers/publications that you two have found to be worthwhile in how they discuss games, and how do you conceive of your own critical method in your chosen format?
Good question.
Yeah. I have fewer answers for this than I would have 5 years ago, because big shakeups at sites have made it so people that I otherwise would have followed previously are either not writing about games anymore or are at different places where I don't want to go for some reason or another.
Yeah, that is true of me too. And then there's also an element of shame, like in my feeling around that, like I'm not keeping up with something I should be keeping up with, but that is true. In general, the answers are all things that will be relatively obvious, I feel like. My favorite video games critic is Noah Caldwell-Gervais on YouTube. I think that his approach is the thing I most closely want to emulate, which is both. I was introduced to like a dichotomy reading an Austin Walker essay about Dragon's Dogma 2, where he talked about how he didn't like the essay he was heading towards because it was comprehensive instead of holistic. Yeah. I really like that separation, and Austin's great. Like I like Austin, another good example, like Austin is a great writer. I tend to like things that I feel kind of do both. Yeah. And that's what Noah does to me. Everything's on, it's hard for us to divorce ourselves from everything that's on the plate has to be judged. Yeah. I like the way that he approaches that in terms of judging things. So that's my favorite, but that's not going to surprise anybody. I think.
Most of my attention on game stuff just goes to like following individual people on Twitter, seeing what they recommend. Because I don't know, like that to me, the yes, that is a hot take machine, but also it is more about surfacing a link to something that somebody thinks is cool, and being as succinct as possible in describing why this thing matters to them. So like Nick Sutner, former 1UP guy, now I think works for Sony or something like that, does a really good job at surfacing really cool stuff, and I've gotten some good recommendations from him in the past. That's just one that kind of comes to mind, in addition to some of the obvious folks, Austin, Danielle Riendo, people like that.
It's interesting too how different people, like I will go to different people for different things. Like Noah's my number one answer because I feel like he does everything I want.
Yeah.
But I like reading Austin Walker's writing because I like the kind of soul that's brought to it sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like it can border sometimes on what if it were coming out of me, I would consider overreading, but I like to read it. And then I like reading like I love NES Works and Jeremy Parrish's stuff from a historical perspective. Mm-hmm. Like it's impeccably researched and takes a wider lens on stuff. Those are more specific scratches that are being itched as opposed to something that is my own like approach. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And just because I didn't answer this part of the question, like, how do I conceive of my own critical method? I don't know. I think I'm leaning a little bit more toward like comprehensive, just because I put the outline together and try to keep all that there. But like, I really tried to keep my mind on, it's a word that I've overused for the past several years, but integration. Try and find places where elements of a game harmonize. Or where they don't work, different systems playing with each other, systems playing with presentation, etc. That's kind of the thing that I value the most, and what I want to highlight.
Yeah, the to me the most impressive thing a video game can ever do is highlight a narrative or thematic thing purely through play, and I am always on the lookout for that.
Yes.
If the part of it that is necessarily a game, contributes to that central thrust. Yeah. I think that is the magic of video games.
That's video games, baby.
That's video games, baby. They're back. They don't always do that, right. But it's cool when they do.
Yeah.
Audie asks, if you could pitch one Hitman level, what would it be?
Hands down, State Fair.
Ooh, that is a great answer. I was going to say Haunted House, but yours could conclude that.
It could.
Like, can you imagine, you go into the haunted house and you have to dress up as one of the animatronics as a storyline kill?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. And nobody notices the kill because they think it's just another dead body, like in the zombie
You string
pit.
up the body like on a noose. But there's no reason why that haunted house couldn't be in a state fair.
Mm-hmm. It could just be one of the many attractions, like rile up the animals and make it look like a pen wall failed,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It basically writes itself. And it would be a great 20th century thing. So I think I had a previous dispatch, I talked about Hitman invades other video games as a great idea. Also, Time Hitman. Like that's a really good idea. Like a medieval castle, in the future.
Yeah, agreed.
Hitman shouldn't go away. I can't believe that they're moving over to James Bond.
Yeah,
as more of a Jack Reacher head. I don't really care for that Bond. I start rewatching on cinema because all I do is rewatch stuff.
Well, yeah.
But I don't actually care about Jack Reacher.
God, I love that. I love that fucking feud.
It's rewatching it. Something that is popping up in my head is obviously that is about the degradation of the Tim Heidecker character.
Of course.
I know I'm not the first person to come up with this. This is just the first time it's really landed for me. Greg is absolutely the fucking villain in that show.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah.
Tim starts pretty reasonable and you get to watch him, like what exposure to a guy like Greg does to somebody. He's so like, he does a thing that we run into all the time that like is a pet peeve of mine online, where somebody is constantly correcting you. Like, and it's incredible stuff.
Yeah, no,
like Greg's got to go. I previously was like a real Greg head, and I was like, no, he did it. Like he's the villain.
And he did it, and he doesn't even realize it. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how radioactive he is. It's great.
Nope. Yeah, he's a walking disaster. Like plants just rot when he walks into the room.
Yeah. Like, no, just that I had a similar arc where it's like you just. It's the fool says it's almost like a bell, like a bell. I don't know, not a bell graph. Yeah, but just anybody who spends more time with it, I feel, would necessarily need to come to the same conclusion.
Yes. shall we move on to other types of questions?
Yes, we shall.
The Q&A portion we're keeping a little bit short today because we have a lot of game responses. For people who are patrons, we're doing those roundups. We're recording another one soon. So they'll be, do not feel bad if your questions aren't getting answered. They will be answered soon.
Yeah. Francis writes, this is a live question. Now that you're full-time podcasters, do you find it harder to make sure you're getting out and about in the world enough to refresh new life experiences and find things to talk about compared to when you both were working as standard jobs?
I feel self-conscious about this a lot of the time because I feel like the story tank gets really dry, but it has little to do with being a full-time podcaster and more to do with COVID.
Yes.
Stuff like being locked down. I've recently been, poking out into the world and doing outdoor events and stuff, some indoor events and everything. So that tank is slowly getting refilled, but I was feeling that way for a while as, a very common being cool thing when we're talking, when we're not on mic is like, hey, I got something for next time we do abject suffering and it runs dry.
Yeah.
Like something worth talking about happened. And the kind of confluence of COVID restrictions lightening a little bit and then having a real fun girlfriend who likes doing stuff has re-upped that for me.
Yeah. I, in general, like this is, it is not even worth being upset that this is how things are for me because it's just who I am. But I, in general, just kind of don't get out and do an awful lot of stuff. I am a homebody, things like that. That said, this got better for me after I stopped working, because I worked a lot. I have no idea how I did this and my, full-time marketing job that I had. I think back to that, 8 years ago, like just wild. But it's gotten a little bit better just because I have more time and more opportunities that I often say, no, I'd rather not.
Opportunities that big no thank you, that's none of my business.
Thing about an opportunity is you can decide not to take it.
It still has value even if you don't do it. Having a choice and not, you're still a choice if you choose not to do something.
I can't be upset with myself that I'm not a different person. No,
that's a wasted energy. As much as people might ask you to be upset about it. It is a silly thing to ask. Luke says, this is a media question. A bit random, but I've heard you guys mention TV tropes numerous times throughout WAF and Bonfireside Chat, and I feel like there's some sort of context I missed. I have some familiarity with TV tropes as a sort of wiki for literary tropes in various media, but your attitude towards TV tropes seems to be one of mild derision. Not outright contempt or anything like that. After all, you both seem to have spent a lot of time on there, but it appeared as a butt of a joke often enough that it just seems there's something I'm missing. Maybe I'm just not in the right circles to know what the general sentiment about TV tropes is, but at any rate, I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on your view on TV tropes, so I'll be in on the jokes in the future. Also, I should note that I'm not a huge TV tropes defender or anything, so you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just literally feel like I'm missing some context.
TV tropes used to be a lot more ridiculous.
I haven't charted how it changed. I don't know if like my browsing habits of it have just changed.
They've gotten rid of whole sections that used to be fucking wild.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they used to have fetish fuel tags at the top of every page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Okay. No, you're right.
This troper pages, there's been an awful lot of cleanup to kind of keep things a little bit more on topic with it. That said, I definitely spend a lot of time reading it because it's one of the only places you can go to like find specific citations about very granular things that happen in games for characters. Or just with story beats and stuff like that. I care less about the categorization than I think a lot of people do. There was just a really weird and extremely dorky culture that I think advanced kind of a CinemaSins-esque, kind of, let's say, deleterious way of looking at media that has calmed down quite a bit. I don't know if it's just long timers, the people who stuck it out ended up being a little bit more serious about a version of the mission that I enjoyed. Now, when I make fun of it, it's more just because sometimes the names of particular tropes that they have are kind of goofy. And of course, there's wild mass guessing. And some of like the nightmare fuel stuff that is a bit more subjective, ends up being just kind of, come on, guys. Yeah,
I was going to mention the nightmare fuel thing. Like the wild mass guessing at this point seems like it's people in on a joke that I'm not in on.
Yeah.
Like nobody could seriously believe any of that nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be definitely a thing I had more contempt, and thank you for reminding me of the fetish fuel shit, because that used to be kind of on Front Street. The nightmare fuel thing, the reason why it's still kind of a butt of a joke for me, even though I do engage in it and generally think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wiki project, so it's functionally infinite voices.
Yes.
An individual voice on it can be good, and then another individual voice can be real dorky, and then that's all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, when I want to make fun of it, it's when it crosses over my personal threshold for like painful sincerity. Somebody on the Slack referred to the TV tropes as fainting goats. And the nightmare fuel thing is recently the thing that has always bothered me the most is because it'll show up in like Teletubbies, and then somebody will write something really obvious like they don't have parents. Really fucked up when you think about it. Pure nightmare fuel. And it just I don't know if that person's being genuine when they say that, but I don't really care. It's just that they've presented an attitude that I think is worthy of fun. Like I think that's a funny thing to think. It's silly.
Yeah.
We used to be way bigger pricks about it, though, when it was worse.
Yeah.
Not to let ourselves off the hook or flagellate us too much, but like it used to be a pet whipping boy when it was worse, and that was on it, but it was also on us for for focusing our attention in a stupid way.
Yes. Yeah. That said, like, it is still a resource that I use a lot. I will read it sometimes for fun, just to remind myself of the details of something when I don't have the time or energy to replay it. And it can even be a useful research tool at times, because it's a way to, if a game has multiple paths, it's a way to kind of look at particulars, kind of get synopses of the ways things could go for different characters, different story elements, stuff like that.
Yeah, great browse and great sleep aid. Yes. And I say that in the best possible way. Oh, yeah. Like that sounds like an insult, imitate Daravan skill from Final Fantasy Tactics, but really it is a great thing to read before you go to sleep. For me.
Yeah. KL writes, the lead singer of a band that I love died last year, which spelled the end for that act. It struck me just the other day that their work is complete, for want of a better way to describe it. While Duckfeed is historically pro-death... while Duckfeed is historically pro-death, are there particular pieces of art you would feel are better, worse, or just dramatically changed for having a definite end? I'm going to snipe Gary and bring up Bowie's discography. Black Star did a lot to redefine his work for me, on top of being a hell of an album to go out on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there are things we talk about whether endings of things matter, and that kind of comes up in their arguments for and against. I think with something like specifically like Black Star, or I think about the Deadwood movie, which that series was famously cut off before its planned ending, and then came back and did a movie that I think absolutely fucking nailed it as the end. The feeling I get doesn't necessarily recontextualize the entire work, because the stuff before that, like if David Bowie had gone out on Hours or gone out on a worse album, that doesn't erase Ziggy Stardust. Like it, go back to the Resident Evil remake question earlier, but it gives me like a feeling of kind of like pride of my boy.
Yeah.
Like good for him. Like what a way to go out. Like that just, it gives me a very good feeling, even if it doesn't recontextualize an entire work.
Yeah.
For me, I do think that like the best works do have endings. In a general sense, like I think about this a lot with comics. As a big comics guy, like it's not, and that's why you have to kind of reframe your thinking. Like the X-Men isn't a story,
right?
It's a setting basically to tell stories in.
Yes.
It's I don't need Spider-Man to have a story that ends. Spider-Man is a setting, and this is what happened to Spider-Man in this individual story that does have an ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that you pretty much summed up my thoughts. That said, I get more enthusiastic about something big if I know that it ends. Like it feels a little bit more like it's going to be worthwhile. See recently some of the uncertainty, and then a little bit of the resolution that was brought with the death of Kentaro Miura and Berserk. The fact that he has trusted assistants who know what he intended and had been working with him and helping him anyway, kind of guiding it toward a particular kind of end, makes me more enthusiastic about continuing and finishing it beyond, kind of where we left it off when we did it for Bonfireside Chat, right?
Same. Yeah, it's hard to want to take the step into something that will not end.
Yes.
Like I'm kind of a defender of the HBO series Carnival, which just has 2 seasons and definitely doesn't have a neat ending. I think that's still worth watching, but I don't know if I'd start it now.
Right.
Knowing that it's just going to cut off.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
James asked, this is a tabletop question. Hey, Gary and Cole, sending good vibes and gratitude for all your hard work from West London. My question, I've heard you guys talk about tabletop games on your shows, mainly RPGs, but are there any board games you particularly love or play often? I found board games to be a real lifeline through the last couple of years. From online Catan during the darkest days of lockdown to games of Dune in our garden when outdoor meeting was allowed here in the UK, and now to big time events like Twilight Imperium, now that meeting indoors is permitted. Aside from the obvious social aspect, the aesthetics and tactility of board games really appeals to me, as does the fact that many games offer narratives and world building, but without the prep that's required for RPGs. Love you and your cats, or love to you and your cats. Yes. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love board games. I have a bunch of them. I buy them and check them out more than I play them, but the times in which I get to play them, I really value. I am a big fan. I only like really playing cooperative games. I don't really want to play a video or a board game or video game against anybody anymore. That's a young man's game. Big shout out. I love a game called Too Many Bones, which is a dice builder tactics game with some of the worst aesthetics I've ever seen, but really, really fun. And I have a big stack of games once I own a bigger place to check out. I've got the Resident Evil 2 remake board game.
Oh, nice.
Has a whole Mr. X stalking mechanic that looks really cool.
Oh, huh.
I love a board game.
Yeah. Oh, you were right about this aesthetic. Wow.
Isn't it hideous? I would never have picked it up if Levi didn't and we didn't play it. It's really mechanically rock solid. I just don't know why they chose to make that their art. It's so fucking hideous.
Wow. No, that is unpleasant to say the least.
Yes.
Huh.
It becomes very wireframe in the moment.
Yeah. For a few years, me and most of the level folks, excluding Jala because of geography reasons, we would get together at Dennis's place in Cincinnati and play, just around the holidays and play a board game. Like we did the non-tactics XCOM game one year. That was pretty fun. For a few years, we did Time Stories, which, depending on the module, was kind of neat. I think the one that comes with it, the Lovecraft one, is absolutely the strongest. But it was just fun hanging out with the guys. For me, it's just a matter of, I don't have, see also why I don't do tabletop RPG stuff, just because I don't have a crew to play it with. It'd be cool, but I don't. So, yeah.
And if I had, the crew the RPG crew I have are also great for board games. We just don't get together all that often because we're all busy.
Yeah.
So we get together once every other week for RPGs. We used to do a monthly board game brunch, but that's kind of been on hiatus. It's been hard. Yeah. Everyone's getting old.
Yep. Let's move on to some show questions here. Ross writes, any notable games you covered for WAF that secretly were a struggle to complete, either due to difficulty or just pure I can't-ness?
I don't think we keep that a secret.
Nope. I keep it on.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, I keep it on Front Street quite a bit because that's a part of it's a part of the experience. We're an experiential show, and if I would see no reason to hide it if I had problems with it, because that colors the response.
We came to that very early too. I've talked about this before, but episode 3 or 4 of ours, I don't like Mario RPG as much as I said I did in the episode.
Yeah.
Super Mario RPG. I think that game has a lot of problems. But I was finding my voice, at the time, and finding comfort, criticizing things that were very popular
Yes.
It was taking some time, but we got there pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Or I feel like. So in general, I'm pretty open about that struggle.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, even if it doesn't come out on the show, like I'll say something on Twitter, like ahead of it, right? So like I'm having trouble with Children of Morta, because of some things that are inherent to the choices they made designing the game, but also just I'm discovering that genre and I just don't mix, especially when it comes to finishing on a deadline, right?
Yeah. It's gonna be hard. We've had such a heavy roguelike year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not willing to banish them from the show, but I even want a break.
Yeah.
From them. Like it's a weird thing where my play clock, like I beat Children of Morta and my playtime was like 16 or 17 hours.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't that much in terms of total time, but it can feel like more sometimes in a run-based game.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yep. So it's not a secret. I put it out.
Yeah. Yep. Andy writes, on a recent episode, you talked about fans sometimes being overly familiar. There was a time early on in my listening where I added one of you on Twitter and said something that in retrospect I regret. So I want to apologize for hiding a pointy emotional Lego in the carpet that day. On a less serious note, with the announcement of the new Willow television series, what is the possibility of getting a Burglecast from Duckfeed? Of course, referencing Burglecut, the Ogliarch that lives in Willow's Village.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd say 100%. Cole is definitely on board. We talked about it before recording.
Yeah.
And he's going to dedicate his life to Willow the same way that I have, and the same way all of you will.
I would say 0%. Nobody has seen that movie, including Gary. They're not making that television show, and all of this is just a massive prank.
Yes. It's one or the other. Or somewhere in between. Those are the three options. In terms of the emotional Lego, thank you for saying that. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. I guarantee it's not the worst thing we've heard. Also, we're too sensitive about that shit.
Yep.
So a little bit of that's on us.
Yep. Yeah. And also, I generally forget about those after like a week, unless it is especially funny or, something that was like brand new.
Yeah. Or especially mean.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I go into Dracula mode and we'll measure out my vengeance in centuries for some things.
Yep.
Like there are things I remember from like 6 years ago, and nothing will happen. I'm just kind of like, yeah, that guy, And I wish I could like literally forget about it. Just not the way my memory works.
Yeah. So. Yeah. There are two sides to the responsibility on those particular things.
100%. We're way too sensitive about that shit. Like that is I'll cop.
Yep. Ryan says, I saw that the Portland Retro Gaming Expo was on again this year. Do either of you have plans to attend that or possibly even do a show or panel?
Good question. We should make a formal announcement about this. I think that we're not doing that show this year. We talked about it a little bit and kind of let it sit in the thought cabinet, and time has passed by. The thing that was the deciding factor for me was when they did PAX and that person died, like the enforcer who was there died. And the thing about, we could potentially do a panel where we're not right next to people and tabling all day and just breathing everyone's breath. But that's a really big investment for just, 40 minutes of maybe being put in a conference room at 9 p.m. on Saturday. To fly out and get a hotel and everything for that. So I think that this year is also, we're still waiting on COVID.
Yeah.
Apologies to anybody who's disappointed by that. You better believe I'm disappointed by it.
Yeah.
In that, like, I really miss it.
Me too.
I don't want to die, and I don't want to get anybody sick.
Yeah, it's
you got family and shit, man. What if I breathe on you and you go and say hi to your grandma and I kill your grandma on accident?
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
For like that, and also like the calculus around like, do we do a Duck Fest in person? It kind of ends up being like, do I want to ask other people to do something that I would not feel comfortable doing? If a podcast that I really loved was having a big in-person event, even if it was like relatively convenient to me, I would say, no, I'd love to, but I can't. I won't. I'm not going to do it. And so I would not want to ask somebody else to put themselves in danger if I wouldn't do that myself. Right.
The other, 100%. And the other thing with PRGE is that it's not for another 4 months. So we don't know what things will look like. then, but the planning for it would need to happen now.
Yeah.
So we would have to commit to it and pay for it now. And we could be like knee deep in the Zeta variant, or some shit by then.
Yeah.
I just don't trust the predictability. Like the thing that the long tail of COVID has done is made it very hard to make long-term plans.
Yes.
I was going to go visit Jeremy this year and I canceled the thing, and I was just out the money. There was no way to get out of it. I tried fighting it.
Yep.
I just ended up paying for this thing that I bought in advance because I thought it would be okay to make plans again, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yep.
Depending on where Portland's at with COVID, I may go to it for a day. Like go wander around it for a day. Right now, I'm only doing events, like event stuff outdoors.
Yes.
I went to an arcade in the afternoon when it was not very busy, but like something that's a convention where it's a huge critical mass of people.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm outdoors only.
Yeah. Look at some photos of PRGE. Like it probably wouldn't be this packed because other people, things are changing. But
you think that, but like people are really hungry to do this shit. Me and my girlfriend got rejected from going to the Renaissance Fair last weekend because they had a turnout that was like 5 times what they estimated.
Oh, wow.
Or something. Like I walked by what was probably the longest line of people I've ever walked by. And we were near the front and got rejected. And then I just walked past 1,000 people who couldn't get in.
Yeah. Pent up demand. Yeah.
Yep.
No, but just look at some photos that people post from PRG. Like if you're picturing something small, it is not. It is very crowded on the show floor. Especially at peak hours. Like from 10 a.m. to noon on Saturday, it is fucking wild.
Yes.
I've said wild too much today. I'm going to try not to say it, but it literally is like I'm somebody who is averse to crowds. It's exhausting.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah.
Still, I want this to be over so fucking bad.
Yes.
I miss even the bad parts of convention. I miss, I want us to go to a hotel and not talk.
Yep.
Like I want to go sit on an uncomfortable pull-out couch.
Yeah.
And play Switch after a long, emotionally exhausting day. Really badly.
Yep.
I can't, even, and it is somebody else's choice, right? Like when, we say like, oh, we don't want to ask people to make a choice that we wouldn't make. It is up to them.
Yep.
We could be libertarian about it. My nature is if we did like a in-person Duckfest and somebody got really sick, even if it was their choice, I don't have the soul that's going to be like, well, their choice.
Yeah.
They did it. It's like, nah, I share some culpability for that, for presenting an attractive nuisance.
Yeah. Like this question happens to fall into an ethical, sensitive spot for us.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Let's move into the lightning round.
Let's do.
Glucios says, what is a weird or unusual game idea that you would like to try for WAF? I don't like, I've long been like, there's nothing off bounds for WAF. Like the things that we don't do for that show are sometimes because we think the feedback would be annoying.
Yeah.
Like we haven't done a World of Warcraft episode because that wouldn't make anybody happy. We don't want to do a Kingdom Hearts episode. I don't think that would make anybody happy.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that is too weird of a game. I think that we could, we could pull it all off. Like I like our Tetris episode a lot, for example, and that would be something that people would argue is not WAF appropriate because it doesn't have a narrative.
Right. I want to at some point do like a Pac-Man overview episode, like looking at different Pac-Man variants, a la the Tetris episode. I think that'd be real fun. Yeah. A lot of this ends up being special topics, kind of stuff. But yeah, nothing is off limits. Like, I don't know, AI Dungeon would be pretty cool to check out.
I've fucked around with that a lot.
Yeah.
Like it would be hard to do. But again, the other thing that we keep threatening to do and then not doing for a decade is reintroduce short episodes.
Yep.
Out of the show, we kind of did that with Another World. AI Dungeon would be a really short episode, but I still think it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Agreed. Jamie writes, what game are you most looking forward to that's due for release by the end of 2023?
I don't keep up on due dates and stuff. I'm real excited about Midnight Suns.
Oh yeah, Midnight Suns looks good.
Yeah, Marvel deck building XCOM is a real Gary Kill phrase.
Yeah.
for me. And the Spider-Man team making a Wolverine game makes me really excited, but I have no idea when that's actually going to come out.
Yeah, that's out when it's out. I'm excited for Gloomwood.
Yeah.
There we are. Scorn is a horror game coming out that I've been following for a while. That has a release date in October now. And Slime Rancher 2. I think that'll be fun. So
Slayers X Terminus Mandate Revenge of the Slayers is going to be fucking lit.
Yeah.
The demo is really fun. And I think that is a secretly just wonderful idea. Like, make a game that is not, a lot of boomer shooters are the idea of like what a 14-year-old boy in 1994 would think is cool, but making that the text and leaning fully into it, I think is actually really genius.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited for that.
Agreed.
Maya ask 4 important questions, and I'll go through these we can answer them as they go.
Yes.
Or as I go. Which Pokemon do you want as a pet, Cole?
I'm going to be kind of basic here, Eevee. Although it could be pretty fucked up to be like, oh, give me a Machamp. I just want a dude.
Give me a roommate. Yeah. Give me a roommate who can bench press me in my sleep.
Yep.
I think give me a Machamp is a suicide by cop.
Oh yeah,
scenario.
No, I'd rip me in half.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to get smothered with a pillow, and then I don't know, turn into a Bowflex.
It's basically, hey, can I have a house Goro? Just a Goro for the house.
Every house in this neighborhood, 2 Motaros in every garage.
Yeah. Yeah, he would hold me up with one set of arms and then just pummel me to death with the other.
So that'd be it for you.
Yep.
I'm going to choose Snorlax. Big sleepy boy who's real cuddly.
Yeah, you get it. That's basically furniture at that point.
Mm-hmm. And that's great.
Yeah.
Which Pokemon do you want to cook and eat?
Hitmonchan.
Okay, very, very good. I have, Hitmonchan would probably be pretty tasty. There.
No,
like Long Pig.
Yeah, no, just ethically, if I could, it would be the closest I could get to eating human.
They're all real sentient. I think maybe an unknown, because that might be like a mystery flavor thing.
Oh, do you think it's like a mystery flavored like Dum Dum Lollipop kind of deal?
Maybe it could be all the Pokemons put together at the bottom of the bin.
Yeah.
But it doesn't correspond to anything. So it's like, it would be the flavor out of space, basically.
They all correspond with letters, right? So what if each of them
taste like?
Yeah. So like, would it taste like kielbasa? What I'm imagining is they just taste like a food that is the first that corresponds to their letter. K. Yeah.
Yeah. The real answer is that ice cream thing.
Yes.
That's basically food.
Mm-hmm.
And then same 2 questions with D&D monsters. Cole, which D&D monster you want as a pet?
It's hard not to think of it in terms of like usefulness, right? Let's assume they're tame. I think I would want a Displacer Beast. Like, what if I just had a weird cat?
Displacer Beast is real good. I was going to say Moondog for similar reasons.
Yeah.
Like a teleporting lawful good dog. That could be very useful. And then which D&D monster do you want to eat?
Man, that is tough because like, you've got the ones that are actual animals, right? Which like would probably be the least likely to kill you.
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know.
Red dragon.
Red dragon, you think?
Yeah. I bet you dragon meat is good.
Okay.
And I bet you a red dragon would be picante.
In
a pleasant way.
I'm a little bit more a fan of some sour flavors. I think a black dragon might be pretty good.
Black dragon would be really, but maybe like that lactic acid. It might be just a yogurt dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean that's a fine taste, like that kind of fermented.
Yeah, but it's weird it's weird in meat. Yeah,
kind of thing.
Oh man. So yes, Glucose writes, what is a game that you've played that you have almost nothing good to say about?
That's tricky because nothing good is pretty hard.
No, even like Paradise Killer, that soundtrack is a bop. So
yeah, I hate that fucking game. But the soundtrack is good and parts of the world design were good and fine and some of the concepts. and I hate that game.
Yeah. I can't think of a game that I have nothing good to say about. At least one that's functional, right?
I think that I probably haven't played the games that I think there'd be nothing good to say about. I mean, so here's one, and it's going to sound like me just being me, and I don't care. I didn't follow the series, obviously, but I did play a bunch of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
When it came out, I was a Final Fantasy head, and my ex-wife, current ex-wife, fiance at the time, was into it, and I played a bunch of it, and I don't think there's anything really fun about that. I think it's a pretty shitty ARPG attached to a lot of really annoying fluff.
Yeah.
So nothing good for that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing makes that question really difficult.
Yeah. No, that's tricky. And final lightning round question: who would win in a fight, Geralt or Rivia, or a crop of little buff boys?
So how much time does Geralt have to prepare?
That's a great question. I'm going to say yes, but for every minute he gets to prepare, we get to goose the boys a little bit.
Okay, that's good. Also, it hinges if that crop includes Troll Boy.
Okay, yeah, no, Troll Boy, it's going to be Troll Boy.
No,
Troll Boy's in there.
It can't. Okay, so it's going to be Troll Boy. Oh, Geralt in a walk.
Troll Boy's in there. He's part of.
Yeah. No, Geralt in a walk. You get Troll Boy in there. He's going to completely dissolve the team.
He's going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of depends on the crop. If we're looking at a little buff boys competition crop of like 10, that's no different than like 10 of those little kobolds that climb out of the the thing. Depending on how goose they are, I guess.
Yeah.
I would still probably give it to Geralt due to the superpowers and because we goose him a little old circus term.
Yeah. If they do a little buff draft, then maybe possibly, but
yeah. If it was a whole crop of Goliaths, perhaps.
Maybe, possibly. But that technology is years away.
Yes.
It's got to go to Geralt.
No. Cole, introduce us to our topic.
Yeah. So Jonathan wrote into us suggesting, hey guys, I've been thinking lately about how much a lot of modern games could use some goddamn editing. A lot of AAA games, especially more cinematically leaning ones, ironically, seem stubbornly unwilling to do a freaking jump cut when really all you're doing is going from point A to point B, and this leads to runtime bloat. This may be why the, quote, standard game runtime has ballooned from roughly 8 hours to 20. But that could just be my tinfoil hat acting up. What do you guys think? Am I off base? Can you think of any games that actually utilize editing techniques to aid pacing? Are video games currently stuck in the walking down a hallway to completion phase? As always, they say nice stuff. Are they currently in the 1970s invasion of the body snatchers? We got to show every single action.
Every step.
Yeah. And I would say we probably are, just because there is a real, let's say, I can't think of another word. There's a real bias toward verisimilitude. And anything that reminds you that this is artifice, right? Like, it's hard to think of games that in play utilize montage theory, right? I can think of two, and they're both indie. 30 Flights of Loving and Paratopic, right?
Yeah. And I still have not played Paratopic. I've got it on my Switch. Want to. 30 Flights of Loving, it's cool that it does that, but it still feels like it doesn't tell a coherent story.
Right. Yeah.
To me, it's using montage theory without things it's joining up. I understand that game is very popular with us, like certain games critics. I have never really quite gotten it, but it does technically montage.
Yeah.
It's a lot of this stuff, like just getting something out of the way so we don't end up talking about it the whole time. We talked about this before, but a lot of this stuff is load time.
Yep.
Based. They want to disguise load times. I think this is a mistake because as games get quicker, you're still going to have to squeeze through that passage or walk down that hallway as machines get quicker. But I think that's what's going on a lot of the time. And I think that probably contributes to the increased walking down hallways to completion feeling.
Yeah.
Is just games being bigger and taking, more having more visual fidelity and taking longer to load.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jonathan points out, I think rightly, that the more cinematic a game's presentation is, the more it clangs when they, believe the boring parts in. It's hard to look at something that feels like it incorporates that kind of empty space, that dead air, something like Shadow of the Colossus. Or even Grand Theft Auto to a certain degree, where, the incident in between the cutscenes ends up being part of the fun. It's hard to look at that and say that is a particular failure to it. But I don't know, I got problems with, Max Payne 3. It's it's really weird where they decide to take the control away from you and where they don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of artistry.
Yeah.
To that, and the decisions that are being made there are like an under-examined decision.
Yeah,
I think that the games do that when people are looking at video games, they don't think about it.
Yeah, in
those terms, but those are cuts that people can make. And the thing that in cinematic games, the reason why it clings so often for me is because it makes things not seem like movies. It's been something I've long said about Kojima and David Cage.
Yeah,
where for two creators who love to ape the language of cinema, they would make horrible fucking movies.
Yes.
David Cage, a movie where somebody fails to brush their teeth 3 times before going on with their day, or Kojima where characters just sit there and tell each other what the metaphor is.
Yeah.
Over and over. They're ironically not very cinematic for it being the only thing they want in the world, the only value they have. It's there's an element to figuring out whether it's like Shadow of the Colossus or GTA, whether the walk back is fun, or the walk there is fun. Are the verses fun to something? Are the verses meaningful?
Yeah.
Putting this in songwriting terms, you can have something that's just chorus. Look at this song is, or what is it? Got My Mind Set on You by George Harrison. You can do things that are all chorus. That's how I was gonna say Hotline Miami, but Hotline Miami definitely has verses to it, but there are games that are basically all chorus through that, but it is much harder to do, and just finding the degree, how much time you want to spend on each is an under-examined bit of artfulness.
Yeah, I think this is something that helps differentiate games like Supermassive makes their particular flavor of the cinematic game from the David Cage likes, things like that, and even to a certain degree, like Life is Strange, even though I enjoy that series quite a bit, is that because those are so focused on being genre pieces, they can do a very good job of following the cardinal rule, which is cut in later than you want to and cut away sooner than you want to.
They're actually perfect at that. That's a great example of that, because we don't watch the characters go to the library to do the seance.
Right.
They trust the audience enough to be we can just cut to the seance.
And there's some awkwardness because there are scenes. I'm playing the quarry right now, so this is fresh in my mind. There are some scenes where it's hey, just go explore this space. And that ends up being even though it is the most interactive, it ends up being some of the least satisfying, because I don't want to have this person awkwardly walking around a storeroom at a summer camp. Right.
Yeah. Clicking on things, picking them up, turning them over, and then putting them down.
Yeah.
Over and over. This is also highly individualized.
Yes.
And that's a subjectivity soup coward, weasel answer, but it's true. I know people who live for this shit.
Yeah.
Who derive a lot of meaning from walking down the hallway. Somebody who was on our Slack, I don't want to name them, but somebody I'm fond of, very, I say famously as if it was inside the Slack, famous for not running outside of dramatic situations in games.
Okay.
So just if the character would walk, she would make them walk. To me, that's wild. I cannot imagine that level of immersion, and even on just from a cinematic angle, they wouldn't show that. You know, Harrier Dubois running from the hotel to the bookstore is something that would be cut in the movie. The action is at the bookstore.
Yeah.
So they just wouldn't show it. And the compromise between that is letting you sprint
Yeah.
to it. It's what we're getting at when we talk about how town should be menus.
Yeah.
In games. Or take a really good example of this, I think, is Gabriel Knight.
Yeah.
How the travel just happens on a map, and then when you get there, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scene.
Yeah.
It's very close, not just to movies, but also tabletop gaming in that respect.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I think that it's, it is ultimately personal, but it's this axis of, how much are we prizing verisimilitude? Which is, there's a joke in community where somebody, is just attempting to make it into a montage, with what they're doing. And the kind of more connected to reality person says, okay, remember what montages are. And he says, montages are movies apologizing for reality.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm fine with media apologizing for reality. I'm fine with media just jumping out and calling attention to its artifice. That is okay, because to me, I just do not value I do not value picking the thing up and moving it around, as neat as it was in the introduction to Indigo Prophecy / Fahrenheit, to go around. Oh, that's even a bad example. Going around and cleaning the crime scene. You got to do the motions to do the mop or whatever. Like, that's verisimilitude, but even that determines what clues are left behind. So I'd have to go later on. Lucas trying to relax around his apartment. I don't just all of that little quotidian stuff. That's not, it just wouldn't make a good movie. It's weird and bad.
I've said this before. I like the artifice.
Yeah.
In video games, I think immersion as a be all end all goal for things is kind of obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
When people are like, what if you could just, hey, that thing, you could just pick it up and it exists. There's a degree of that, but I don't want full version of that. I like that video games are video games, just like I like that movies are movies and they're not realistic. Part of the reason why I engage in art is to shift my thinking to this other set of rules. That you can do, and that's part and parcel of the joy for me.
It does not take anything away from me. It is not a constant splinter, constant splinter in my skin that the edge that the image on a movie has edges, right?
Yes. Yeah, I prefer it. Yep. I want that to be there. A good example of I brought this up earlier when talking about kind of verses and choruses in terms of editing things. I really love it when these downtime moments are used to effect.
Yes.
And I think a real old school principle of creating stuff that there are 1,000 exceptions, but I do generally ascribe to, is that something should add, to be there. Mm-hmm. So you take Hotline Miami, that is a game mostly based on choruses, big explosive bits of action. Mm-hmm. When you finish, the music drains out and you walk past all the carnage. That is not a walk down the hallway to completion edit thing. Mm-hmm. You don't want to edit that out. That's incredibly important to the feeling. They're doing something with it. The times where this feels bad is when I feel like they're not doing something with it, or they're spending more than they're getting. The Lucas, futzing around in his apartment until the meter fills up or whatever, they're spending more than they're getting. Yeah. It can be the story of Lucas that he wastes some time and kind of reflects and has an internal life during this section. They just fucked it up.
Yep.
He's bad at it. David Cage is very bad at it. So it makes it feel tedious and endless. And just, silly. It makes it feel less real.
Yeah. I've got no problem that every dungeon in Skyrim, happens to have a trapdoor near the end that takes you back towards the beginning. I got no problem that when you defeat a minor dungeon boss in Elden Ring, there's a little blip that you can hit that'll warp you back to the entrance. They
teleport you out.
Yeah.
Or we're doing Children of Morta. When you beat a boss, they teleport you back to the base. There are a lot of little exceptions you can make to verisimilitude that I think are much for the greater, like aren't even compromises.
Mm-hmm.
They're just for the greater good.
Yes. For the greater good.
For the greater good, you know? It's real weird. We're doing Castlevania 2 as well, which very pointedly doesn't give you a shortcut back to the beginning, even when there are tons of places where they could.
Yep.
You know? And I don't feel like I like that game a lot. Spoiler. That's going to be an episode of us praising a game that has a lot of problems.
Yes.
But that doesn't add a whole lot to the game, I think. That's something that if it took longer, if it were not an 8-bit, go to the right and whip stuff game, that would be a real pain.
Yeah.
That would be a problem. So, yeah. I don't, and then other things you can do to kind of patch this shit, to add some razzle dazzle to your walking down a hallway to completion can be a real problem as well.
Yeah.
Again, just previews for next month's games and stuff. I hate, in Children of Morta, the monsters that come out of corpses.
Yeah.
I feel like those are largely there to make backtracking, work a little bit better. To kind of razzle dazzle up that walking down a hallway thing that's not letting you skip. I think it's very subtractive.
Yeah. The the slow walking while somebody talks to you on the radio, we're going to slow you down. That is an attempt again, that is an attempt to cover up loading screens, but it creates more of a problem than any other solution that they would have, while still trying to, make it seem verisimilitudinous.
Yeah. Yeah. So in general, I think that this isn't what we set out to say, that, talk about the topic, talking about editing, but in general, verisimilitude is not the highest artistic goal.
Yeah.
You go to for these things. I would much prefer, I wish games would be choosier in the language of cinema that they borrowed. And montage or, cutting to things like that, as shown in other video games where they do that, is a really great place to start.
Yeah. This art exists in a marketplace, so it is pretty hard not to also acknowledge that there is not a lot of incentive to make games shorter right now.
No.
Just either economically or just from a
it's fucking wild that there's not, when everybody just has Game Pass and is just getting their games for free, and they still want them to be 1,000 hours long.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Straw men.
Yeah. What are you doing, straw men who pitch fits when a game is, not 20% shorter like it should be? God damn it.
Yeah. Just, it's been, and yeah, that's a whole, it's a whole other topic that we've definitely done.
Yeah.
But man.
And you may be thinking after, okay, Cole, what if I cut 20% and I give you that version of it? Are you still going to say cut 20% off of that one that is already cut? Yes.
Yeah. It's very, very possibly.
Yeah.
There are games where it's hard to know what to cut, because of quality, but then it ends up being a thing where I want it to take the place over more entries. Kind of, right? So we do Bonfireside Chat. Elden Ring's an incredibly long game. I love that game. I think there are very few parts of it that are just bummers.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a man, they should have fucking cut this section. It doesn't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
But if they cut it, it would make the game better because it would stand to be a little bit shorter. And then just throw that in DLC or throw in a sequel, or I could also just go without it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know what I was missing. And it might make the overall experience a little bit better. So kind of all over the place with that one, but I'll blame that on my addled brain.
No, that's fine. That's
yeah. Thanks everybody. We appreciate you. If you have, we'll put out a call for responses for next month. And as we mentioned, we're doing our roundup. If you want to hear the roundups, we're doing those quarterly. They're bonus episodes of this specific kind of the show, but without the listener responses. You can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yeah. Let's get into listener responses to the games we've played.
Yeah. Starting off here with Zachary talking about The Incredible Hulk. And Zachary says, for a game I have never played or even seen played, this Hulk game has a strangely large place in my memory. Reading about it on forums and in magazines was my first introduction to the idea of a sandbox game where you could do anything. For some reason, to my little kid brain, this translated to me thinking I could use Hulk's ground slam repeatedly to dig a big hole to the other side of the world, which is obviously not how games, ground slams, or the Earth itself works.
This reminds me
Geomodding.
Exactly. This reminds me of how disappointed I was when I played a demo for the original Red faction after having read like you can destroy everything, and then like no, it stops you from using a rocket launcher to build a tunnel to the exit. And fie on you,
you can go through some walls. Red faction.
Yeah. Man, that was I'm happy that happened to me early, so I would not continue to believe such claims.
I played that game to completion on the PS2.
Oh God,
it's no good. It's a bad game. People love the sequel too, which I haven't played, but my understanding is it just does a bunch of open world stuff that people like now. So like destructible buildings. And shit.
You're not talking about Red Faction 2. You're talking about Guerrilla.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, Guerrilla's. I mean, I remember having fun with it. That said, it came out 13 years ago. So
yeah, I'm very curious as to whether that was actually fun. Actually super good, or whether that was just the first game that lets you do shit like that.
It just had a release on the Switch that like a couple of weeks ago, and by a couple of weeks ago, I mean probably firmly several months ago now. It was on sale for like $1, and I picked it up. So
I wish I'd seen that.
Yeah,
I probably would have. Yeah, because I never played it. Yeah, but I was curious about it.
Inedible Bulk, which is a very fun handle, writes in saying, I have a lot of fun memories of the cows in Ultimate Destruction. For whatever reason, the cows are completely indestructible, making them a great weapon to use against tanks. The developers were clearly aware of how funny it was that there's a cheat in the game to turn all of the missiles in the games into flying, exploding cows. This, along with Pandemic Studios' use of cows in Destroy All Humans and The Saboteur. In that game, cows turn into cuts of meat when killed. There's a lot of great open-world cow humor that has sadly been forgotten.
Cows were a thing for a while. Also see, the creator is a monster and everything, but Earthworm Jim.
Yep. And
their cow stuff.
Cows, the cow level in Diablo.
Yes, there is no cow level. The cheat code in Warcraft 3. Yeah, boy, Destroy All Humans. I don't just go into the PS2 disappointment corridor on these responses.
Also a disappointment. Like, what a great premise, and they just didn't have the missions to back it up.
You know what's fucking weird?
What?
We talked about how the last thing on anyone's bingo card was Stubbs the Zombie Rebel Without a Pulse.
Okay.
Coming back, and then it did. Stubbs the Zombie Rebel Without a Pulse, the original version, has a bug that makes it so you can't complete it.
Fun.
And I remember like I played it and then like sent in a support ticket and all that stuff didn't work. So it was like looking through my Steam library and I was like, oh, they probably will just give me the new version, or there's probably not the old version anymore. But no, you can still get the old version that you can't complete.
You can still buy it, and oh wow.
Yeah, like it still has a store page. And I mean, I didn't go through trying to buy it because I already have it, but so I don't know if it would have stopped you or something, but it still has a store page, which is not usually the case for things that are delisted.
Wow.
Yeah. I think about that in the Destroy All Humans hole.
Yeah.
As just kind of like, what a good idea that just, boy, they fucked up.
Yeah. I was pretty disappointed with Destroy All Humans.
Yeah. That game sucks. And they just kept making sequels.
Yep.
Butt Probe, the joke.
Yeah.
Incredibly funny for an idea for an alien to stick a thing into a butt.
I know, right? That's it's the best thing an alien can do.
Yeah. It's real up there. I just remember the Kids in the Hall sketch where it's the two aliens are like, do you ever think that like we're reaching the limits of what we can learn from sticking things? I mean, the only thing we really learn is 1 out of every 10 humans enjoy it. And then they just show Scott Thompson and he goes, it's very good.
1 out of every 10 humans enjoys that. That's good.
But they keep searching. Moving on to Terranigma responses. Thomas says, I have quote unquote fond memories of rubbing my thumb raw on the metal post hole of my Gravis Gamepad Pro while playing this game. Aside from the pain, there are a few things I remember. Reading about Tenji Suzo in a gaming magazine during lunch in middle school, and someone saying it sounded like the name was ripped off from Final Fantasy III's Zozo Town. Teenagers are dumb. After I finally got to play it, I recall looking up Lhasa and being heartbroken. Contrary to the promise of never changing in the game, it had very much changed after being annexed by China and the subsequent exile of the Dalai Lama. China is dumb.
I didn't. Yeah, no, I kind of don't know what they're talking about. With lots of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know so little about the Dalai Lama.
Right.
I know that he's not a llama. And that's really pretty close to the limits of my Dalai. And I'm not proud of this ignorance. I know I'm making a joke of it, but it's just I know other stuff instead. I just don't know very much about it.
Yeah. It's I know that he's one of those people who's praised, but if you look at stuff that he's said, it ends up kind of being I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We can just none of our business. We just don't know enough about it. It's not the position of watch out for fireballs that China is dumb. Like every country, I feel like it's probably complicated.
It's probably complicated and usually breaks down to the government's dumb and the people are good. Yeah.
Yeah. People are good in kind of a general sense.
Yeah.
The Texas annexation sucks.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of good people get stranded.
Yeah.
That happens.
Or secession, you mean? I was going to say.
What did I say?
You said annexation.
Oh, Texas too.
Let's re-annex Texas.
Yeah, just a show of dominance. It's a little play that we like to do. You know, I pretend to secede, you pretend to annex me.
Yeah,
you know, how else can Ted Cruz come?
Yeah, I mean,
Rooney.
Just embarrassing himself online. That seems to be what does it. So if you're making a joke, Thomas, I'm sorry if I didn't get it.
Apologies. Other people are less ignorant about this than we are.
Yes. Nervous Bibby writes, "Hey guys, I revisited Terranigma to cover Quintet's oeuvre for Kurt Kalada's big JRPG book. This is a particularly interesting one to reassess since you can almost trace the lineage of the genre. Quintet were formed by the creators of Ys 1 and 2, the games which largely codified the action RPG, after they left Falcom due to exploitative working conditions. One can observe how their vision evolved from Ys's bump combat to Soul Blazer's simple melee to Terranigma's more varied verbs. Quintet definitely weren't afraid to try new things, but they also never fully broke free of their roots. Terranigma can, at times, feel like a culmination of Ys. Both games have useless spells, an attractive menu that's difficult to use, bosses which take 1 HP damage if you're a single level below a threshold, and a mediocre script punctuated by heartfelt scenes. Instead of addressing these issues, Terranigma just added volume. I feel like this genre ended up taking the wrong lessons away, which is why Ys games are now 80 to 100 plus hours when they used to be 4 to 8. I still think Terranigma is top of its genre, but bring back the 8-hour action RPG. Then they add a PS. Cole, you might get something out of Illusion of Gaia. The scenario was written by sci-fi author Mariko Ohara, and it's got some great solemn moments. Wouldn't recommend it for WoF, but it's relatively bite-sized and moves at a pace. Yeah, I'll slap it onto my little retro handheld thing.
Yeah, great feedback.
Yep,
and good response.
Mm-hmm.
I've never caught into Ys because I played the early ones a lot where they do have the bump combat, and I hate bump combat.
Yeah.
And then I played the side-scrolling one for the Super Nintendo, and then Oath and Felghana came out, and I picked that up on Steam, and it was 1 billion hours, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
The idea of an 80-hour action RPG sounds horrible to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is a genre that lives and dies in the 8 to 12-hour threshold.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you surpass 15, you're you got some splaining to do.
Yeah. I love seeing Kurt Kalada in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up Castlevania 2 stuff on GamesFAQs.
Yep.
GameFAQs because I wanted to one, it's like I'd played this 1 billion times. I don't remember everything. I don't want to just wander. But 2, I also wanted to see when you go to a really old Nintendo game like that.
Mm-hmm.
On GameFAQs, you can end up running into it's a good picture of what people thought during the first kind of retro wave of stuff. And there's a FAQ written by both Kurt Kalada
mm-hmm.
and also noted chud what's his head? No Steppy.
Colin Moriarty. Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking on there too.
Yeah, it's very surprising. It doesn't have an embarrassing
tribute to 9/11.
Yeah, surprisingly, it does not have. I mean, if it did, it would be like he'd be like a dead site or whatever it's called, the dead zone. Like then the law blood on his hands. But yeah, just real neat to see Kurt Kalada's like early roots as somebody who I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
of that guy.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy that as well.
Mm-hmm. Doug says, I always had a strong attachment to the series, ActRaiser and Soul Blazer, and to a lesser extent, Illusion of Gaia. Like most, I had never heard of Terra Nigma until long after its release, and first experienced it via emulation. It was an incredible feeling, like finding out one of your favorite bands had a secret album unearthed by an archaeological accident. I devoured Terra Nigma, and the soundtrack always gives me good vibes whenever it happens to show up on my playlist. I think one of the things I like most about it is its tone. The concept of a devastated world revitalized through your efforts is the same concept that had been explored in those other games, but here the setting is far closer to Earth. The reveal that you have been serving the forces of evil was a great twist on the formula from those earlier games. I can't imagine a modern throwback trying to recreate something like this, but I would love to see the attempt. These games occupy a very specific corner of the 16-bit era, but one that never fails to work on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of our complaints in the episode kind of maybe boiled down a little bit to we wish that the game was more about that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I really think Nervous got it.
Yeah.
You know, basically like it's a mediocre script punctuated by heartfelt scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the heartfelt scenes are very surprising. It's got all kinds of goat moments, but the script is actually pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Quintet's great.
Mm-hmm. And I've had that soundtrack on, that is featured in my, just kind of going around doing stuff like a little guy, kind of music. Yeah.
This is going to make me sound, this is blasphemy. But a lot of times when we do Super Nintendo games for the show, I will up the speed. Like when I'm not in a critical area, like if I'm just kind of grinding or if I'm just going through a dungeon.
Yeah.
So the soundtracks always sound goofy to me.
Yeah.
And we keep playing these games with like amazing soundtracks. So like Chrono Trigger has a great soundtrack. I listen to the whole thing at double speed though, because fuck playing that game at the speed it comes with.
Yeah.
Same thing with Terra Nigma, where like I like the soundtrack a lot. I gave it a spin on its own just to kind of evaluate it, but I don't have the strong attachment memories because I played most of it at an increased speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when I'm playing a game like that, I listen to a podcast while I'm playing it too. Yeah. And also, God love whoever made emulators that had just a button that could speed stuff up. I map on OpenEmu here on Mac. I just map it to the right stick of my I map fast forward and rewind to the right stick on my 8BitDo controller here. So like if I'm just walking and doing stuff, fast forward. If I fuck up, instead of using a save state to go back, just kind of like, no, I'm just going to undo that. Yeah.
Great feeling.
Yeah. Let's see here. Zane writes, Terra Nigma is a game I loved playing through the first time, but which I always found difficult to pick back up. There's a disparity between how linear the game feels in the main plot versus how easy it is to miss some quest markers for the literal world building. It made a walkthrough guide feel both necessary and condescending. Despite that, there are three things that still highlight this game for me. One, the sense of bringing the world back to life. You act like the hands of God. You act like the hands of a god, creating the land, then life, then humanity. It feels both more personal and more grand than most RPG save the world plots. Two, the idiosyncrasies of the leveling system, where one level can make a huge difference in the damage you deal. Grinding, when necessary, was fast and easy, and made you feel immediately more powerful. And three, the feel of the combat in general, and the run and jump attack combo in particular. Down with the swords, I want more spear fighters. Let's see here. Looking forward to the episode. Very curious to hear how the conversation about Columbus goes. I put it at 30% that one of you does a Columbo impression.
I don't think we did.
We did not. I was too politics brained, and it was too funny just to call out how goofy that depiction of Columbus was. So
yeah. Columbo is, I'm not saying there's nothing there, but it's I'm too mad at Columbus.
Yeah, that's the thing.
For that. out of those things, I think those are all benefits except for number 2.
Yeah.
That kind of like leveling, as mentioned earlier as well, but nervous, where like if you're one level too low, you just do scratch damage shit. That's been on my mind lately because Dragon's Dogma 2 got announced, and people have been talking about Dragon's Dogma 1 again, and that game has that problem. It's a math thing. Like when you actually look at the nuts and bolts of how it calculates attack and defense, the equations do that.
Yeah.
And I generally think that sucks. I love a level making a big difference. I do not want it to feel like scratch damage if you're one level below.
Yeah.
That always feels like it is acquiescing way too much to the Dragon Quest, like just climb a mountain.
Yeah.
If you put in the time, you'll win philosophy of video games that I don't particularly like.
It's unsatisfying to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of ruins skill. Like a big thing that happens in Dragon's Dogma, this isn't a Dragon's Dogma episode, but just is that you will run into something, it's hard, but you think you can fight it because it has a predictable move set, and it just takes a million years because you're not doing enough damage. You learn how to dodge it perfectly, and then you get a really unsatisfying reward because they're not giving you anything for jumping the curve.
Yeah.
Ends up making a game where like you're only supposed to do things when and where it tells you to. And that is really contrary to an open world.
Yeah.
Like we have to Dragon's Dogma at some point because a couple of people have asked me about this. I think it might be the worst game I like.
Yeah.
The game has a lot of problems. Like I like it. It does some things really, really amazingly, but it has a lot of fucking problems.
Yeah.
And now that we're in like Elden Ring, it could potentially be on WoW. Like we had that in the back pocket as a potential bonfire side chat thing, but spoken for.
Spoken for the next while anyway.
Quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to another world. Out of this world responses, Drew says, that feeling of being alone and confused in an entirely unrecognizable alien world has never been captured so succinctly by another piece of media. I'm talking about this podcast, of course. Hearing Gary and Cole hammer home the influence of this wildly successful, important game that I've literally never heard of, even in passing, is one of the most bizarre experiences of my adult life. A more gullible person may assume that maybe this is just a gap in their gaming knowledge, but not me. I recognize that this brazen attempt to Mandela effect a game into existence is just the next step in the network-wide Duckfeed villain arc, which began when Cole guested on Guppy. Nice try, gentlemen, but you won't fool me.
This is funny because, obviously Drew's doing a bit here. But like when we did the fake episode specifically about Atomic for your second book, Gary, we had people write in asking like, hey, I can't find this game anywhere.
That's very cute. I feel very good about that. I had this exact same experience with ZZT.
Oh,
when Frog Fractions 2 came out, everyone just like, oh yeah, ZZT. It's just obviously it's ZZT. And then I just started seeing ZZT stuff everywhere, and I had never heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah, really blew me away. Like I was just like, oh, this very influential thing. You obviously made it up.
Yeah. But this is a thing that happens in a bunch of media too. Finding out that like something you like is influenced by this, predecessor that you didn't hear about, but was wildly influential, thing that happens in music. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What does Zane say?
Zane says, you're 7 years old. It's the 1990s. You head to the rental place on a Friday night for their 3-3-3 deal. 3 games for 3 nights for $3. You've never heard of Out of This World, but you decide to try it out. You boot it up and skip the intro like a cool kid. Walking to the right, you are immediately killed by a leech. You try again. Leech after leech. You just can't figure it out. You hand the controller to your older brother, who somehow manages to get past them. He is promptly killed by a lion. On following attempts, he cannot get past the leech. You take the game out. It's time for another glorious weekend of Super Mario RPG instead. But the game and the leeches occupy a small portion of your brain forever. Thanks for providing context for a game that I knew I would never play, but had always wondered about.
Yeah, I think that is probably a pretty common experience. For folk.
It runs you real hard into a wall right at the start.
Yeah. I don't know how as a kid I was able to intuit stuff. Like I didn't have a guide for this or anything. I just played it as a kid and just brute forced my way past it. Like it just made sense to me. Like when Charlie sits down at piano.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, keyboard just always made sense to me. Like there's no explanation for it. I just intuited it.
Yeah.
And I just do not remember tons of friction for it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's kind of the same about like with the original Prince of Persia for me.
Yeah. I guess maybe at this time I had played Prince of Persia on the Sega CD.
Ooh.
Weirdly enough, is the main system I played through most of Prince of Persia on. So that might be where I had the experience.
Yeah, I played it on the Max at the library.
Sleepy Smile says, "Hey WAF boys, Another World has the distinction of being my first memorable abandonware game. Shout out to Home of the Underdogs.
What?
And I got a Home of the Underdogs. And also my first quote end quote art game where the mechanics weren't really inherently satisfying and weren't meant to be. They were meant to create an experience. I think we can kind of blame David Cage's whole over. Why did I forget what?
I said earlier, it's oeuvre.
Oeuvre. God, I was searching in my mind. I went through every possible vowel combination except for oo.
Easy.
It's like that Giant Bomb clip where nobody guesses four. I was on fast forward, just going like A I O E.
You were just Doctor Strange in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I went through every possible world except for the one. David Cage's old oeuvre on Another World, but it's easy to trace the line from it to Team Ico's games and ding, 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 the Souls series, which are more mechanically rich, but carry forward the lonely atmosphere and use of mechanical punishment to set a tone. It's a limited experience on its own, but replaying it in 2022 has some warm blanket appeal for me. And also, you can chug it in like half an hour. Curious if you guys ever played Eric Chahi's follow-up, Heart of Darkness, a very smartly chosen and not at all SEO poison title. It's slightly more mechanically robust, feels like a cinematic platformer crossed with Metal Slug, and has some of the most grimdark death animations for a child I've ever seen in a video game. Like, worth pulling up a YouTube compilation for. Peace.
I never played that. We talked about it during that episode, obviously, because it's the closest follow-up. But I didn't put two and two together. Another World's horrifying death sequences mixed with here's a kid you play as.
Drawn in a cartoon style.
Yeah. Like
not just drawn more realistically, but doesn't have that abstraction, but also is drawn like a kid-friendly cartoon.
Weird.
Yeah, like if Willie Beamish did it.
That's funny.
Over and over. I don't like Heart of the Alien. I don't like Heart of the Alien, but I also don't like Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
I tried to get into it, but I've never been able to get to it. Part of it because it's too long. Like we talked about that action RPG sweet spot.
Yeah.
The cinematic platformer sweet spot is weirdly like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Like going too much, like 2 hours is the absolute fucking maximum on one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Too long.
Cut it. Let's see here. Moving on to vampire responses. Vampire. Jack, who executive produced that episode, says, I think the game really represents something more to me than its component parts, all of which are serviceable but rarely stellar. I continue to be a player generally searching for good boy treats in my psychographic. But when there is not a dramatic amount of delineation between, I'll just drain this one jerk that they present to me at the start of the game, and I am a total monster, yes, it really underscores that it's important to take gaming moral liberties a little bit more easily. If it all adds up to an at what cost declaration from the moral arbiter voice of the developer either way, and in addition, no presence of a narrative ending that is more particularly satisfying, to my judgment anyway, if I'm following my generally preset psychographic, why not enjoy a much more mechanically satisfying playthrough and nod at the good boy points that might have been on a YouTube video? I feel confident opining that the game is fairly objectively less satisfying, not to mention much more difficult and tedious in its mechanics if I am chasing the high of gamer dev moral praise. That sort of bizarre meta commentary makes this juice worth the squeeze alone to me.
It's you mentioned this, we mentioned in the episode, one of the tragic flaws of Vampire doing that contrast and asking you to make that decision is that it doesn't primarily get more challenging in any kind of interesting way.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have the mechanical chops to be a soul level one run, in Dark Souls, basically. Like it ends up being just more tedium.
Yeah.
In a game. And I played it pretty liberal with my chomping, and it still has a lot of tedious parts.
Yes.
Like, to me, it just makes me think of this kind of idea that, games have flirted with a lot, and some games more successfully than others, requires a lot more skill than maybe it seems.
Yeah.
If you're going to make me choose between two things, you have to have the chops to make both of them good.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, like, engaging in their own way.
Yeah. For an example of something that does that really well, Dishonored, right?
Yeah. I love how Dishonored does it.
Yeah.
I had fun doing a low chaos run of Dishonored. I had more fun doing a high chaos run.
Yeah.
But it's not like the low chaos version doesn't have fun.
It's not like the low chaos version is just a, worse, less fun version of the high chaos run. They're different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Moving on to another response. Eli says, hey guys, I was really excited to see you were all recovering this game because I just love playing a vampire, and this game does really cool stuff with it. I play Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition every week. I love how both it and the game focus on and attempt to mechanicalize the role of the vampire as parasites that present a danger to their community, even if they're the good guy. You can be the coolest anarch with the goodest politics in Vampire the Masquerade, but you're always one botched feeding, instance of blackmail from the prince, or opportunity for political gain from, directly or indirectly, hurting an innocent or a loved one. Likewise, in order to gain power and achieve his goals, Dr. Reed has to feed on the members of the communities he is also trying to help, which in turn goes on to hurt the community. Which is why, in this attempt to finally beat the game, I decided to play on hard, as that would allow for the greatest need to get that sweet, sweet, innocent blood. And yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah.
Oh. I like that. I thought that's a good way of looking at mechanicalizing vampire stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And it is the appeal that this has that they both share.
Yes.
Like, it is the cool thing that vampires can do in fiction.
God, I need to finish reading the Vampire 5th edition source book. That's a fucking beautiful book, and it's just so dense that I put it down. Yeah.
Yeah. And vampires are cool.
Vampires are cool.
Yeah, you'll enjoy just being around some vampires for a little while.
Love vampire concepts.
God.
Gordon writes, I play Vampire as if it were a computer game adaptation of Arsenic and Old Lace, floating around town and occasionally deciding, well, we all know there's no happy ending for this person, and giving them a quick mercy kill for my sweet, sweet stat boost. The writing in the game has its highs and lows, but when it's at its highs, it does do a pretty good job of giving me plenty of good reasons in either direction to give a person an orthodontic euthanasia or not. Highlight for me was when Jonathan, after spending the entire game getting tricked, misled, and otherwise clowned on by virtually every vampire in London, finally learns a single iota of cunning and tells Marshall he thinks the old man hears him well enough and refuses to lean down into a chomping range. I would have patted that. I could have patted that dimwit right on the head.
I love that moment. We talked about it in the episode, and it was kind of at the end of a very long episode, so we didn't get all the shrift it needed. I like that they have him do it. I would have really liked if it was a choice.
Oh, yeah.
Like a bad ending where you just become food for the legendary vampire knight.
Yeah.
After that much game and after solving that dumb little cutscene puzzle to get the secret door and stuff. Would have been very funny to me.
Agreed. But it is a good moment.
Yeah. Naveen says, I'm writing this ahead of the Vampire episode, but it seems based on comments you guys have made that's a game you like, despite it having some major flaws. I'm in the same boat with that game, where the social components of role-playing a doctor carried me through some very middling combat and rough world navigation. Basically, because it falls into the BioWare school of RPG dialogue and moral choices, I can forgive a whole lot. I felt the same playing Cyberpunk 2077 recently, where despite the myriad of issues and certain insensitive representations of marginalized people, I enjoyed it because it let me make choices that affect the world, or at least my relationship with that world. My question is, what are components of a game, if done well, that make you more inclined to forgive major flaws? Or is it more situational for you, and each game hits differently?
Each game hits differently, but I think kind of a little bit more mechanical competency goes a long way. You know, Like, if those choices and that social stuff ultimately ends up being a set of chutes and ladders that will ultimately dump me into combat or dump me into, navigation exploration, it really helps if that thing they're going to dump me into is fun to engage with on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm doing a cool thing.
Yeah.
Goes a long way. Like, I want my guy to be doing something that's not boring.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is an interesting situation.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go check in on this person who's blackmailing, our sponsor, who's doing it for this morally complicated reason. And I have to kind of follow these clues, and they have this whole immigrant backstory and stuff. Like, that is a cool thing to do.
Yes.
Even if at the end of the day, you're just clicking,
Mm-hmm.
Clicking and walking and fighting and biting.
Yeah.
Sucking and fucking. Toads, Loads, and Codes. The new podcast from Duckfeed. If that's what's going on, I like that quite a bit. Movement stuff doesn't do as much for me, or I would have liked Returnal more.
Yeah.
Fun to move around. I just didn't feel like I was doing anything cool.
Yeah.
And I was just fighting arenas full of glowy things.
Agreed.
Yeah. I really thought I would go back to that, and I haven't.
No, yeah, no, I uninstalled it to make room room for the quarry.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just not interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Close us out.
Oh, yes, this is me. Sam writes, this was my first time through Vampire, and what impressed me most was how interconnected the world felt. Taking a life felt like it impacted other people who knew the victim, and seeing a domino effect cause chaos because I ate one jerk led to fun little interludes. My personal favorite was eating a member of the local gang, having his last words be, "Who will take care of my son?" and me immediately solving this problem by crossing the road and eating the son too.
I'll take care of him.
for varying definitions of take care of. Yeah. Unfortunately, I thought Vampire undermined itself by wagging its finger if you engage with this system, which isn't a bad idea in itself. The problem is that if you don't plan on eating people, then the game becomes way less fun. The bad combat is harder because you're underleveled. You have no incentive to find all a character's secrets, so you speed through the dialogue, and you don't get away with and you don't get to enjoy watching the repercussions of your actions. Instead, between every rest, you go around throwing fatigue medicines at everyone and then crack on with the story. If there were more direct, non-cool consequences beyond 5 minutes at the end, it would feel balanced. But as it is, it feels like if Shadow of Mordor ended with abrupt punishment for players if they'd engaged with the Nemesis system.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, it does not land it.
I think it would, a lot of it comes down to numbers. A lot of it, make it so I can chomp more than 4 people to get the good ending. That the moralizing that it does would feel a lot more satisfying if it was just a little bit less strict,
a little looser.
Yeah.
It's also a thing too, where everyone's mileage is going to vary for unforeseen consequences.
Yeah.
That's something I seek out in games. I like it if I think something's fine and it turns out I don't know everything and it's bad.
Yeah.
That's very appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But that the currency is going to spend different with everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for writing in. If you have things to say about July's games, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. July's games are Children of Morta, Castlevania 2, and the premium episode is going to be about Control.
Yeah, it's weirdly vibe month.
Yeah.
Between Another World and Castlevania 2, I haven't started playing Control yet, but it's a lot of like things that get by on vibe or lean on vibe quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anything to say about the next month's games, August, which are Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age, and Wario Land 4, please write in by August 15th.
Yep. Deadline is always the 15th of each month. Go to duckfeed.tv/contact, click the WAF button, and respond there if and you can. If you have thoughts about multiple games, please separate them into multiple responses. That makes our job possible.
Yes. Yeah. If you're listening to this, if you want to hear more of it, you can do so by being a patron. You get bonus shows, bonus episodes. You'll get bonus versions of this exact show at $5 a month.
Yeah.
So go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. We really appreciate everybody who has joined us and supported us. This is a dream job. We really appreciate it. And a reminder, if you are a non-white straight dude, you got a project that you'd like to get some more eyes on, hit us up at Gary@Duckfeed.tv, and we'll throw some attention your way.
Yep. I'm trying to think of other stuff, and no, that's all we got right now.
Yeah, we'll see you next month with Children of Morta.
Yes, we will.
Umbasa.
Umbasa.